do you know her?
Your cousin? I have to see her. Where's her body?
Hey, when's the last time you spoke to her? When's the last time you spoke to your cousin?
We spoke on Instagram, I think, yesterday.
Yesterday? Okay.
I see my cousin.
Hey, listen, do you know her mom?
Yes. My aunt is
December
coming.
2025, outside a Broward County courthouse. A woman stands surrounded by family, her voice breaking as she speaks about the defendant who just received her sentence. What she did was wicked and evil. A person like her, it's important they never see the light of day again. She is wearing a t-shirt with a photograph printed on the front, the face of a young woman, smiling, full of life. Beneath the image, 3 words, "Justice for Kayla." 10 family members had spoken that day. One by one, they faced the woman who had taken everything from them. Some wept. Some shook with anger. One called her testimony a crock of garbage. Another said she had spent 3 years taunting them in court with cold, prolonged stares. No remorse, no apology, nothing. The woman they were addressing sat motionless, 31 years old, already convicted of first-degree murder. The jury had only needed 1 hour to decide her fate. 1 hour. That is how long it took 12 strangers to see through everything she told them. The blackout, the self-defense, the excuses. But this story does not begin in a courtroom. It begins with a blocked phone number, a flight from New York, and a knock on an apartment door at 5 in the morning. This is the Sakina Thompson case, Tamarack, Florida, a suburb tucked into Broward County, about 20 miles north of Fort Lauderdale. It is the kind of place where palm trees line quiet streets, and apartment complexes house young people chasing their version of the American dream, working, saving, building something. Kayla Hodgson was one of them. At 23 years old, Kayla was doing exactly what young people do. She was figuring out her life. She had recently moved into the Tamarack Village apartment complex, a modest second-floor unit in a neighborhood that was not known for crime. It was safe, it was affordable, it was hers. Kayla worked in the Broward County hospitality scene. She was a bottle waitress, a job that required equal parts: charm, stamina, and hustle. The nightlife industry in South Florida is competitive. You do not last long if you cannot connect with people. Kayla lasted. She thrived. She was just really sweet. She was the life of the party. She always had kind words. That was the thing about Kayla. She was not complicated. She was not difficult. She showed up. She smiled. She made people feel good about themselves. In a world full of noise, Kayla was warmth. Her friends called her bright, beautiful, everybody's hype man, the kind of woman who lifted people up instead of tearing them down. Her family would later write that everyone who was lucky enough to cross paths with Kayla had no choice but to love her vibrant personality and big heart. She was an amazing daughter, a very loved and adored big sister, a niece, granddaughter, and cousin whose bond with her family was like no other. These are not empty words written by grieving relatives trying to make sense of tragedy. These are descriptions that matched how everyone who knew Kayla remembered her. Her beautiful smile would light up any room she would walk into. That is what her family said. And if you look at her photographs, you understand immediately what they meant. There is an openness in her face, a joy that seems unguarded, the kind of smile that invites you in rather than holding you at a distance. Kayla made an impression with her compassion, humbleness, and loyalty. She was not flashy. She was not loud. She was simply present in the way that good people are present, showing up for the people she loved, doing her job well, living her life one day at a time. At 23, she had her whole future ahead of her. She could have been anything, done anything, gone anywhere. The tragedy of her story is not just that her life was cut short. It is that we will never know what she might have become. In the summer of 2022, Kayla was dating someone new. He had a past, as most people do. Specifically, he had an ex-girlfriend who lived in New York, a woman named Sakina Thompson. Kayla knew about Sakina. She had seen the attempts at contact, the messages, the refusal to accept that the relationship was over. Kayla did what many women in her position would do. She blocked Sakina on social media and moved on with her life. It was a reasonable decision, a boundary, a way of saying, I do not know you, I do not owe you anything, and I am not interested in whatever drama you are trying to create. Kayla had no way of knowing that this simple act of self-protection would cost her everything. To Sakina Thompson, being blocked was not just an inconvenience, it was an insult, a confirmation of every jealous thought that had been festering in her mind. The new girlfriend was not just dating her ex, the new girlfriend was erasing her, pretending she did not exist, and Sakina could not let that stand. Kayla Hodgson went about her life in Tamarack, Florida, working, laughing, living. She had no idea that 1,000 miles away, a woman she had never met was watching her Instagram, searching for her name, planning something that would shatter the lives of everyone who loved her. The countdown to July 13th, 2022 had already begun. 1,000 miles north of Tamarack, in the Springfield Gardens neighborhood of Queens, New York, lived Sakina Thompson. She was 28 years old in the summer of 2022. Born in Jamaica, she had made her way to the United States and built a life in one of New York City's outer boroughs. Springfield Gardens is a working-class neighborhood, the kind of place where people mind their business and get on with their lives. By all outward appearances, Sakina was just another face in the crowd, another young woman navigating the complexities of adulthood. But beneath the surface, something had taken root, something that would consume her completely. Sakina had been in a relationship. It ended. The reasons why matter less than what happened next. Because while the relationship ended for him, it never ended for her. She could not let go. In the weeks and months that followed, Sakina watched from a distance. Social media made it easy. A few taps on a screen and she could see everything. Where he went, who he was with, what he was doing. And eventually, she saw something that would push her over the edge. He had moved on. He was dating someone new. A young woman in Florida named Kayla Hodgson. Sakina began to obsess. She stalked Kayla's Instagram page, searching for the username OnePrincessK over and over again. She scoured her ex-boyfriend's phone looking for evidence of the relationship. Every photograph was a wound. Every comment was salt rubbed into it. Kayla's family would later describe what Sakina must have felt during those long hours of scrolling. Tell me what you thought every time you searched OnePrincessK on Instagram, one cousin said at the sentencing. Seeing a beautiful girl with a banging body and vibrant personality, the complete total opposite from what you see when you stand in front of the mirror. That killed you so much, you wanted to damage her face. That is why you did what you did. Jealousy is a strange thing. It starts as a whisper, a small voice that tells you something has been taken from you, that you deserve what someone else has, that the universe owes you something it has failed to deliver. Left unchecked, that whisper becomes a scream. Sakina convinced herself that Kayla was the problem, not the failed relationship, not her own inability to move forward, not the simple truth that people fall out of love and find new partners every single day. None of that mattered. In Sakina's mind, there was only one villain in this story, and her name was Kayla Hodgson. Then came the block. At some point, Kayla became aware of Sakina's attention. Perhaps she saw the profile views. Perhaps her boyfriend mentioned the messages. Perhaps she simply sensed that something was not right. Whatever the reason, Kayla made a decision that millions of people make every day without consequence. She blocked Sakina Thompson on social media. For most people, being blocked is an annoyance, a minor rejection. You shrug it off and move on with your life. But Sakina was not most people. To her, being blocked was the ultimate insult. The new girlfriend was not just dating her ex. The new girlfriend was erasing her, pretending she did not exist. And that was something Sakina could not accept. The obsession that had been simmering for months now boiled over into something far more dangerous. Sakina stopped simply watching. She started planning. She researched flights from New York to South Florida. She created a fake Uber account so her movements could not be traced. She prepared a disguise so she would not be recognized. She thought about how she would get to Kayla's apartment, how she would confront her, what she would do when they finally stood face to face. Every detail was considered, every step was mapped out. This was not a crime of passion born from a momentary lapse in judgment. This was premeditation in its coldest, most deliberate form. Sakina Thompson was also 2 months pregnant at the time. She would later use this fact as part of her defense. But the pregnancy did not stop her from booking that flight. It did not give her pause. If anything, it made the calculation even more disturbing. She was carrying a life inside her while planning to take one. Sakina Thompson landed in South Florida days before July 13, 2022. She checked into a hotel near Tamarack and waited. This was not a spontaneous trip. This was not a woman acting on impulse. She had flown over 1,000 miles with a plan already formed in her mind. The days she spent in that hotel room were not for sightseeing or second thoughts. They were for preparation. Prosecutors would later present evidence showing her movements during this period. Flight records, cell phone data, hotel receipts. Every piece told the same story. A woman who had come to Florida with one purpose. In the early morning hours of July 13th, Sakina put her plan into motion. She dressed carefully, a hat to obscure her face, a COVID-19 mask to hide her features. In 2022, wearing a mask in public was still common enough that it would not draw attention. But Sakina was not wearing it for health reasons. She was wearing it so no one could identify her. She opened the Uber app on her phone, but not her real account. She had created a fake profile specifically for this trip, another layer of distance between herself and what she was about to do. The car arrived. She climbed in. The driver had no idea he was transporting a woman to commit murder. It was approximately 5 in the morning when Sakina arrived at the Tamarack Village apartment complex. The sun had not yet risen. Most of the residents were still asleep. The hallways were quiet. The world was still. Sakina made her way to Kayla's second-floor apartment. She knocked on the door. What happened next would be disputed in court 3 years later. Sakina would claim she only wanted to talk, woman to woman, about the man they were both connected to. She would say that Kayla let her in, that the conversation escalated, that Kayla attacked her first, punching her in the face, striking her over the head with a hookah stem, slashing her stomach with a piece of broken glass. She would tell the jury she blacked out, that she did not remember the actual killing, that her next memory was standing over Kayla's body with a weapon in her hand, surrounded by blood. The jury did not believe her.
Attacked her.
Punching me,
Punching you where?
my face.
Where on your face? Point to it for us.
I don't remember, but everywhere
You
on my
don't
face.
remember where she was punching you in your face?
In my face.
I mean, this is why you killed her, right?
No.
Right?
No.
It's not?
No.
You didn't kill her because she was fighting you?
No, I killed her because she took the glass from the hookah and slashed me across my stomach.
Thompson says she was 2 months pregnant at the time. She says Hodgson cut her stomach with a piece of glass. Thompson grabbed the glass and then blacked out. She allegedly awoke to Hodgson dead on the floor.
What the evidence
Gruesome.
showed was something far more brutal. Kayla Hodgson was stabbed dozens of times. This was not a single wound inflicted in a moment of panic. This was sustained violence, the kind of attack that takes time, that requires effort. That cannot be explained away by a convenient blackout.
Floor. Gruesome autopsy photos of Hodgson's body show she was stabbed dozens of times.
Prosecutors described the scene to the jury. Being violated in your own home, in the sanctity of your own home, is a scary thing, said Assistant State Prosecutor Tanya Johnson. What is even scarier is being attacked, being brutally murdered in your own home, and that person getting away with it. Kayla Hodgson was 23 years old. She died on the floor of her own apartment before the sun came up. Her only crime was dating a man whose ex-girlfriend could not let go. After the killing, Sakina did not call 911. She did not seek help. She did not show any of the panic or remorse that might indicate a woman who had just defended herself from an attack. Instead, she cleaned up. She wiped down parts of the scene with Lysol wipes and paper towels. She took off her bloody clothes and changed into an outfit from Kayla's closet. She gathered evidence and threw it in the trash. She walked through the blood of the woman she had just killed, later admitting to investigators, "I was walking in the blood." Then she called another Uber using her fake account and left. Surveillance footage captured her exiting the apartment complex.
Times.
I wasn't really walking over the blood, I was walking in the blood.
You walked in the blood?
Yes.
With what shoes?
The BB shoes. I changed my shoes.
Thompson admitted to changing into the victim's clothes, cleaning up some of the crime scene, and being too scared to call police. She also threw evidence in the trash.
No, she's getting close enough because my jacket was cut up.
Okay, your jacket was cut up.
My jacket was cut up.
Okay, and what'd you do with that jacket?
Threw it away.
In the months
She was wearing different clothes than when she arrived. The sun was starting to rise. Residents were beginning to wake up. And Sakina Thompson walked out into the morning light as if nothing had happened. Within days, she was back in New York, back in her apartment in Springfield Gardens, Queens, living her life, going through the motions, 1,000 miles away from the body she had left behind. She thought she had gotten away with it. She was wrong. July 13th, 2022, approximately 3 in the afternoon. A 911 call came into the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Someone had found an unresponsive woman inside a second-floor apartment at the Tamarack Village complex on Northwest 57th Street. When paramedics arrived, they discovered something far worse than an unresponsive woman. Kayla Hodgson was dead. The scene told its own story. Blood everywhere. Dozens of stab wounds on the victim's body. The dispatcher's notes from the original call captured the horror. Our caller says that there is a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck. This was not a natural death. This was not an accident. This was homicide.
Detectives continue going in and out of a second-floor unit Thursday afternoon at the Tamarack Village Apartments along Commercial Boulevard. Investigators processing bags of evidence, including some found outside on the sidewalk. This command center here more than 20 hours after a deadly discovery.
Our caller says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
This harrowing 911 call went through around 3 in the afternoon Thursday. Broward deputies later finding a young woman dead. Family says she was just 23 years old. Friends identify her as Kayla Hodgson, pictured here, a flight attendant and bartender for special events.
BSO Homicide Unit detectives descended on the apartment complex. Crime scene technicians documented everything. The Broward Medical Examiner's Office began the grim work of cataloging what had been done to Kayla's body. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood. They pulled surveillance footage from the apartment complex. They examined Kayla's phone, her social media accounts, her recent contacts. They interviewed friends, family members, co-workers. They built a picture of the young woman's life and the people in it. One name kept coming up: Sakina Thompson, a woman from New York who had been blocked on social media after a series of tense messages. A woman who, according to those who knew the situation, had never accepted that the relationship was over. Detectives dug deeper. They pulled flight records and discovered that Sakina Thompson had traveled from New York to South Florida just days before the murder. They traced cell phone data that placed her in the Tamarack area on the morning of July 13th. They found the fake Uber account she had used to travel to and from the apartment complex. The evidence was damning. Flight manifests, digital footprints, surveillance footage showing a woman in a hat and mask arriving at the complex before dawn and leaving hours later in different clothes. The residents of Tamarack Village were scared. A young woman had been butchered in her own apartment. The killer was still out there. People locked their doors a little tighter. They looked over their shoulders a little more often, but not for long. On July 25th, 2022, less than 2 weeks after the murder, Broward County authorities obtained a warrant for Sakina Thompson's arrest. The charge was murder in the first degree. The arrest affidavit described her actions in stark terms, demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life by stabbing with a sharp object, with a premeditated intent to cause death. Sakina was back in New York by then, living her life in Springfield Gardens as if nothing had happened. Perhaps she thought the distance would protect her. Perhaps she believed she had covered her tracks well enough. Perhaps she simply could not imagine that her carefully planned crime would unravel so quickly. On August 3, 2022, officers from the New York Police Department arrived at her door. They took her into custody without incident. She was booked into the Rose M. Singer Center on Rikers Island to await extradition. Sakina Thompson was extradited to Broward County, Florida, to face the charge of first-degree murder. The woman who had flown south to kill was now being flown back to answer for what she had done. The investigation was over. The arrest had been made. Now came the long wait for justice. 3 years. That is how long Kayla Hodgson's family waited for their day in court. 3 years of grief. 3 years of unanswered questions. 3 years of watching the woman who murdered their daughter, sister, cousin, and friend sit in a jail cell while the wheels of justice turned slowly. In October 2025, the trial of Sakina Thompson finally began in Broward County. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Thompson had planned this murder. She had researched flights. She had created fake accounts. She had disguised herself. She had traveled over 1,000 miles to confront a woman she had never met. And then, she had stabbed that woman dozens of times before fleeing back to New York without ever calling for help. This was premeditation. This was first-degree murder. Then, Sakina Thompson made a decision that would seal her fate. She took the witness stand in her own defense. She admitted to killing Kayla Hodgson. There was no denying that. But she claimed it was self-defense. She told the jury she had only gone to Kayla's apartment to talk, woman to woman, about the man they both had history with. She said Kayla attacked her first, grabbed her hair, punched her in the face, struck her over the head with a hookah stem, slashed her stomach with a piece of broken glass. She said she was 2 months pregnant at the time, that she was fighting not just for her own life, but for the life of her unborn child. And then she said something that would echo through the courtroom. She claimed she blacked out, that she did not remember the actual killing, that her next memory was standing over Kayla's body, weapon in hand, surrounded by blood. The prosecution tore her story apart. If she only went to talk, why the disguise? Why the fake Uber account? Why arrive at 5 in the morning? Why not call 911 afterward if she had truly been attacked? Why clean the scene? Why change into the victim's clothes? Why flee back to New York? The jury listened to 4 hours of closing arguments. They reviewed the evidence, the flight records, the cell phone data, the surveillance footage, the autopsy photos showing dozens of stab wounds on a 23-year-old woman who had done nothing wrong. Then they went to deliberate. 1 hour. That is all it took. 60 minutes for 12 strangers to see through every lie Sakina Thompson had told. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty of first-degree murder. Kayla's family embraced in the courtroom. We are just so thankful in this moment that the jury was able to see the story for what it is, they said. That Kayla did not deserve to die the way that she did.
Sakina Thompson.
A burden lifted.
We, the jury, find as follows as the defendant in this case. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree.
Guilty is what this family has waited to hear for more than 3 years.
We finally have some justice for Kayla.
A jury found Sakina Thompson guilty of killing 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson in 2022. Prosecutors
on December 1st, 2025, Sakina Thompson returned to court for sentencing. 10 of Kayla's family members and friends addressed the judge. They wore matching t-shirts with Kayla's photograph and the words, "Justice for Kayla." They described the woman they had lost, a fashionista, a loving personality, someone willing to help anyone in need. They had harsh words for Thompson. One cousin called her actions wicked and evil. Another called her testimony a crock of garbage. Several noted that Thompson had shown no remorse during the 3-year legal process, instead taunting the family with prolonged stares in the courtroom. The judge delivered the sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. He called the killing heinous. He noted that Thompson had tracked down her victim, showed up at her home, and killed her. There was no ambiguity, no room for mercy. She will die in prison. Kayla Hodgson will never come back, and a family will carry this grief forever. That is the story of the Sakina Thompson case.
I do believe the defendant in this particular situation, this crime was heinous in the way she tracked down, located, showed up, and then killed Ms. Thompson. With that, the court does sentence Ms. Thompson to adjudicate her guilty sentence to life in prison. Under Florida's criminal punishment code, that's without parole. And she will serve the remainder of her life in prison. And anything else?